There's some games that move you. There's some games that motivate you. Then there's some games that come along and push the limits of what's possible on the hardware to another level and create a blueprint for the next generation of game design and genre-defining style. Legacy, history, and the foundation for the future of series such as Red Dead, Saints Row, Yakuza, Death Stranding, Days Gone, and well, the list goes on and on. Now, while it paved the way for certain game titles, it also carved the possibility for another genre outside of just the sandbox free roam, do as you please style. It paved the way for a future generation of elimination competitive multiplayer titles, including Fortnite, Warzone, and Apex, thanks to the systems put into use 20 years prior. The game that pushed not only the limitations of the hardware, but also the imagination of the developers and player base alike, and, of course, set forth an explosion of like-minded game design and story technique. This is Grand Theft Auto 3, the 20th anniversary. Most all videos at this point deep dive into the long history of Rockstar games and the origins of the top-down GTA titles that came before. But I think by now we know what they looked like and have seen the history documented time and time again because, well, Grand Theft Auto and GTA 2 was very successful and hugely popular in gaming culture. It wasn't exactly the best games around in terms of game mechanics, but they were instrumental in setting up what the future would hold. GTA 3 was not only the third innovation to an open world concept, but was the culmination of years of working with the sandbox idea and waiting for the technologies to eventually catch up. Finally, when the PS2 came around, and more notably, the go-ahead from publisher Rockstar to the devs at DMA Design to work on a new game engine, it was time for the ambitious GTA 3 vision to be made possible. It pushed the bar for consumers' expectations and what other game studios were working on. At the time, closest thing to a title like GTA 3 would have been Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, the original Halo Combat Evolved, Gran Turismo 3, the original Devil May Cry, or Conker's Bad Fur Day, or even another Rockstar game, the Remedy Entertainment's beloved and highly successful title, Max Payne. All had their fair share of unique ideas, gameplay mechanics, and graphical qualities, but none used all of the ideas in a way where players could freely explore 3D rendered areas and roam around the game world using all mechanics at once, meanwhile freely choosing which missions to take on at random. Most every game had a set path with linear storytelling, but for GTA, it was different. One phone call could mean the start of a new relationship.
Yeah, I'm sure your new lapdog has everything covered. And isn't he big and strong? Hey, Fighter, let's go visit Chico and get some party treats.
Or the setup of the main character, Cloud or Claude, whichever way you want to say his name, to run to the next island of the map.
To lie low. There's a warehouse at the edge of Belleville that should suit your needs. Back here to my condo when you're ready, and you and me can have a little chat.
In all these moments, though, it sets up for a feeling of not only playing a gangster movie, like the previous GTA titles tried to do, but also immersing yourself in the world of Liberty City. This new version of Liberty City, though, is a fully 3D, rendered as you go cityscape where you can do anything in a sandbox gameplay kind of way. It's a place that feels a little bit like New York City and maybe a bit of Chicago, but would be the once again backdrop for more mayhem and crazy characters than even Max Payne would provide that same year. And let me tell you, I fucking love Max Payne also. Maybe that could be another video someday.
They were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger. and then it was over.
So we've looked at the past, but I also wanted to share a couple personal stories of what made GTA 3 one of my all-time favorites, not only in the GTA series, but also the PS2 era. As a kid growing up, I didn't leave the house much, except for school, of course, and while my friends were all quoting the latest movies and music punchlines, there was also a topic that would pop up of being how much crazy fun they had on a game called Grand Theft Auto. You gotta remember, this was the early 2000s, and music was still the top trend, and gaming was still just a side hobby. You know, like years before YouTube, Twitch streaming, and esports and all that. To bring it back to me personally, though, I always dreamed of touring the world and playing guitar in a rock band, which coincidentally, the Yakuza brothers also initially wanted to be rock stars themselves before becoming game developers, hence the name Rockstar Games. So with my family, they always wanted to keep me out of trouble, mixed that with having no money to travel to begin with, and here I was, with a PS2, 11 years old, and I had a golden ticket to a version of NYC, a place I lived close to and had seen on so many movies, and now finally had a means to essentially experience NYC in a way that I could never do before. Now, once again, being 11 years old in 2001, it was a much different time and era compared to nowadays. The SRB wasn't as heavily enforced as it is now, but I also wasn't a troubled kid by any means either. I mean, like a year later, SOCOM would come out, and I would get on to the military stuff, and I would develop the beginnings of the whole werewolf thing, so... For me, playing GTA 3, it was like living out all the action movies, and learning not only how to shoot guns, but in an unexpected way, respect the power they contained. Like most other 90s kids, I got out real life frustrations in the game world, and a couple hours later felt calmed down IRL. Almost like it was a kooky therapy session of sorts for me. GTA 3 helped me see a version of the world pre-social media, and really before I had access to the internet. GTA over the years would also go on to help me get in touch with the different 80s and 90s trends and popular music that I had missed out on because I was raised in a house where rap and hip-hop were pushed aside for more rock and metal music on CD and cassette. Everything GTA sets up was a crash course in parodying the eras to a nice perfection without turning into a heavy political statement or cashing in on certain movements like we see now. It just worked and didn't overthink anything, nothing try-hard, and just good laughs at how insane certain news topics and discussions can be in the world. Man, I miss those days.
I started out with nothing. Just a kid from the streets with nothing to lose. Then I met Julius, and everything changed.
Welcome to the 3rd Street Saints.
Once I joined the 3rd Street Saints, everything started going my way.
Next up, let's take a look at the impact that GTA 3 had on the industry overall. Saints Row released in 2006, 5 years after GTA 3, and 3 years after San Andreas. Saints Row was made with a similar styled sandbox gameplay design, but in a goofy, over-the-top, almost arcade-like way of storytelling in unexpected moments. It was essentially Xbox's answer to the success of GTA San Andreas, since San Andreas for the first year was a PlayStation exclusive. Another notable difference is where, unlike San Andreas, Saints Row introduced an RPG element where you could create a character in Saints Row and join the 3rd Street Saints. Although this was similar to how GTA would have you working with gangs in each city you visit, where Saints Row and GTA differed at the time, was GTA still centered around a main character like Claude, Tommy, or CJ, so you, the player, would still have to relate to a main character instead of making one yourself. This trend in Rockstar Games storytelling still continues today, with some characters beloved and others more forgettable. Next up, we'll head to Japan and see the Yakuza series, which was more of an anime-influenced free roam around a city in Japan working as and around the local Yakuza families. Then there was games like The Getaway, which was a very cinematic movie-centric version of a GTA-styled title, yet linear experience set in London with car chases, gunfights, and mature themes sprinkled throughout. Some honorable mentions from over the years are titles like Streets of LA in New York, Watch Dogs, Sleeping Dogs, Death Stranding, Days Gone, and of course the movie references like
GTA motherfucker! Oh, yeah! 10 points!
and a movie like Free Guy, which is pretty much based on the style of GTA Online that we see now, and how people can roleplay or just create a cool version of themselves in a free roam sandbox environment. Funny enough, people still haven't seen an actual GTA movie yet. All games I mentioned, though, were made with the influences that were made possible years prior by GTA 3 and the freedom of free roam that it brought to the game design. Years later, we would see the likes of yet another Rockstar game series, Red Dead, become a fantastic Wild West cowboy version of GTA. But the most notable from a game engine point of interest would be the rise of online action shooters like PUBG, DayZ, and later Fortnite, Warzone, Apex, which all use similar game engine structures of on-the-fly level loading to make the map data streaming work correctly. Something worth noting, a game like Cyberpunk 2077 tries to also use the same idea of level loading, but because of rushed development leading to badly optimized data transfers on older hardware and the amount of different consoles it was trying to work on, well, Cyberpunk is a showcase of how Rockstar could possibly one day make a mistake if they don't take the time to carefully and properly develop the game engine for the current hardware. The last but definitely not least thing I have to mention is, of course, the worldly popular GTA Online, and how, in some aspects, took what made Saints Row great with creating a custom character and using that character to run around and cause mayhem in the virtual streets. Not to say GTA Online doesn't also have its own faults, but it brings a strong question to the future of Rockstar games, which I'll get back to in a bit. Everything that GTA 3 helped put together in the early days was a history-making catapult that sent the gaming industry forward into a new generation of technical wonders that we still see today. The biggest question for GTA overall as a series, though, is what the future of Grand Theft Auto looks like. Will it be more online advancements, or could we see once again the return of an amazing story mode that can push the gaming industry forward, innovate, and raise the bar of quality, like not only GTA 3 did on PS2, but how the likes of Red Dead Redemption 2 did with the supreme quality and advanced developer tech, like mocap and storytelling tools, to create the fine details of the Wild West experience. Either way, GTA 3 will always be felt in the world of gaming, from the story-driven to the always growing popularity of online battle royales. The next time you load up your favorite game with any kind of free roam, sandbox, random mission structure type of gameplay, remember that just as the years of game development and countless versions of the game engines has been updated and upgraded, its core ideas made in the past all lead to that moment you click the button and load up the first screen. Everything in the past was history-making moments that formed the journey leading up to it. To end this out, I will say thank you for tuning in, thanks for stopping by, and endings are memorable, but the journey is unforgettable.